Joining me on the channel today is Lori Kaufmann, author of the YA historical novel Rebel Daughter. Set in Jerusalem in the year 70, it follows Esther, a young woman determined to take charge of her life against all odds. Welcome, Lori.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
I always like to start at the beginning and explore your journey to becoming a published author. What kind of kid were you?
A nerdy kid, very nerdy. I love to read and especially love comic books, Archie and Richie Rich, and those were my escape, I think.
Well, being nerdy totally paid off because I saw that you got degrees from both Harvard and Princeton, so you're a smarty pants. What was it like going to such amazing schools?
You know, Carly, I'm 61. That is such ancient history to talk about my schools. But thank you for asking. Yeah, it definitely feels like a different life. You know, I've got 4 kids grown, and I've kind of moved on from my academic career, but it's great. It was great. Education's always a wonderful thing.
Yeah. How did you go from being a reader who loved reading to wanting to write your own books?
I always wanted to write, but I never really had the guts to go for it. And then life got in the way, and I was working, and like I said, I had 4 kids and very busy. And I never thought it was something that I could do professionally. And when I turned 50, I decided now or never, and I got a little more serious about it. And I didn't think it would take me 10 years to write this book, which it did, because I was kind of obsessive about all the historical research, but it was a labor of love. And my advice, I guess, is it's never too late.
Yeah, well, 10 years seems to be a repeated theme on this channel, with authors saying like they decided to pursue publishing, and it took them 10 years to finally get that book deal. And so for some of them, they've written many books until they finally got the one that was the book deal. For some, they, like you, they started with one book and then just spent so much time revising. I mean, I know my favorite author probably of all time, Madeline Miller. She said it took 10 years to write Song of Achilles. So you have, I'd love to talk to you about your historical research. What kind of research did you do to write this novel?
So because the novel takes place in first century Jerusalem, I really wanted to get all the details right. And my characters were real people who lived. The story is based on, it's a true story. And I felt an obligation to these real life characters to bring their story to life as accurately as possible. And I worked very closely with some of the world's leading historians and scholars, archaeologists about the first century, which is why it took me so long to write. But I checked everything from how you made face cream in the first century to what people ate and how they dressed. And I was a little bit overboard on it in retrospect, which is why it took so long. But it was fascinating, and I wanted to get it right.
That's great. How did you get like the voice of the character? Because you can't necessarily find current, well, you can find translations, but you can't really, go on Google Books and find like diaries from that time.
Yeah, so that's a really good question. I think that I always felt that even though the world then was very different, there was slavery and war, and it was a very violent place compared to our world today, but I felt like people were the same. And I could imagine a young woman at that stage of life, having a lot of the same feelings and issues that women today have. Whom can you trust? Who are you going to love? You want to protect your family. You want to live your life in freedom and dignity. And those are all very universal human traits. So I felt like I understood that part of her.
Tell us about the day that you found out your book was going to be published.
It was very exciting. Like I said, I spent so long working on the book, but actually finding the publisher went very quickly. I got an agent almost immediately, and I got the publisher almost immediately. So that was very, very exciting. I just wanted to, tell my kids, see, I really was doing something all along, not just avoiding you and trying not to run carpools and cooking. And, so it was kind of vindication for all that time that I, kind of checked out to work on it. But it was very exciting, but again, I don't want to take away from the excitement of it, but once you've had kids and you've lived through life's up and downs, I don't think it had the same tremendous impact on my life that maybe it would have had if I were much younger. It's, because this was my probably sixth career, so I've tried a lot of different things and I've had different jobs, and you get used to more ups and downs the older you get. So I didn't have everything riding on it. I have a great family and a good life, and I don't think I had as much riding on it as maybe I would have if I were in my 20s, but still obviously a tremendous thrill. But a bigger thrill for me really was showing it to my parents. My father is kind of he's 90 and not doing that well. And so the day that I got to show it to him, which was a few weeks ago, was truly, it's just so exciting, and much more, I think even more exciting than getting the publisher was giving it to him. And the other really big thrill is when I hear from readers, because I feel like I've lived with these characters, and now to have other people get to know them is just so much more exciting than I ever thought it would. So that's what I'm loving, is hearing from readers.
What's a misconception that you had about publishing prior to being published that has now changed?
I had no idea how slow it takes. I mean, I got the publisher, and then it took 2 years that was 2 years ago.
Yes.
And what takes 2 years? The book's written, so that was really frustrating, because here I was so excited, and then I wanted to see it, and then I had to wait for 2 more years. So, now that's why it feels like it's finally here, February. And plus the world has so, changed since I got the publishing deal, that I almost feel like this whole past year has just been this weird, strange time. But so it's great to have it come out now. It's a big lift, after a year for everyone.
Yeah. And what's your favorite step when you're writing? Is it drafting or revising?
Definitely revising. It's so much fun for me to put the pieces together. I know the plot, I know the characters, and just to kind of fiddle with it and make sure that it all kind of interlocks in the right way. That was very fun for me. That was like a puzzle. I found the drafting very stressful, the first draft, until I had something down. And plus it was like 1,500 pages. I just, so I really had to cut and cut and cut and cut. So
what do your first drafts look like?
Oh, a mess, a total mess, because I just wanted to know everything. And I was, like I said, obsessive about finding out things. And I would, kind of close my eyes and try to visualize it, like as if it were a movie. And I think, okay, so what's she wearing? And what's the temperature like? And, you can, I don't think I have a lot of good advice to offer people in terms of writing, because I think it was a very inefficient process, but it was fun and I liked it. So that's kind of what worked for me. But I wouldn't want to show my drafts to anyone. It would scare them away.
And so, but what's your process from going from that like messy draft to something that you are ready to show people? How many stages does it have to go through before you're ready to kind of send it out?
A lot more than I would have expected. I didn't have a certain number of drafts because I was doing it on the computer. I was constantly fiddling with it. But I think if my advice would be if I wish I had known how to be a little bit more disciplined about this, I think that I needed to kind of push through and just get to the end instead of trying to perfect everything, because I spent so much time working on things that in the end I cut out. So I think it is more important to be able to step back and see the whole narrative arc, look at, more macro view before you get, you go down the rabbit hole of just checking everything. So I think that would be my advice, is to look at the whole sweep of the novel, and then drill down.
So pitch your book. Tell us about it. Tell us about the plot, everything.
Okay, it takes place in first century Jerusalem, a very momentous time for human history, really. I mean, it's when Christianity became a world religion, and Judaism changed permanently after the first century from a temple-based religion to something that was more community-based, and very exciting time. It's so set in this period, and it's about a young woman who's taken captive after the Jewish rebellion against Rome, and she's sold as a slave in Rome, and her master falls in love with her and sets her free. And what's interesting about this story is that it's based on a true story. My character, Esther, her gravestone was found in southern Italy. So I worked with historians to recreate her life.
That's amazing. Are you a perfectionist as you draft, or are you a chaos artist?
I'm totally chaos. Like that's a no-brainer for me. But I work well with books everywhere and lots of things going on. And I like to cast the net very wide in terms of ideas and sources. And then I just plow through tons and tons of material. And it's very chaotic, but it works for me. I think everybody has to trust their process. Everybody is different. And that's one thing I learned, is that I had to stop reading all the how-to books and actually just do what worked for me.
Do you have a huge ego, or are you humble and demure?
Probably, I hope neither. I hope that I'm confident but not cocky. Again, I think a lot has to do, I don't want to pretend like I'm this really old person, because I don't feel old, but I feel that at this stage of my life, I know who I am. So I hope that I'm secure, but that's a tough one. Think about that one a little more. Good questions, Carly.
Are you a morning writer or an evening writer?
Morning, but I wouldn't say I'm a crazy morning. I'm not one of these people that can, pop out of bed and go for my, morning run and whatever, and then sit down, and I sit down at 6 a.m. I mean, I get up and I have my coffee and I read the paper, but definitely morning, late morning.
Are you a plotter or a pantser?
So I tried both, because again, when I started this, I didn't really know how to be a writer. I knew how to be a reader, and I knew what kind of books I wanted. And I tried both ways. And I think in retrospect, plotting would have worked better. I needed the guardrails to keep me in line. So I'm trying to do that on my next book that I'm working on. And it's much more, it works better for me.
And what's the best revision suggestion that you've gotten along the way?
The best suggestion was, when you're revising, to go through and look at one thing at a time. You go through and I would look at, say, just dialogue or just transition between chapters, just setting. And that really helped a lot, because in the beginning I would say, okay, now I have to revise. And I would look at it all and I would just be so overwhelmed, and I would start in one direction, and then, I didn't have the discipline or the experience to know how to do it. And so that was great. That was great advice. One thing at a time.
Was there ever a period in your life where you feared you would never get published?
Oh, totally. I never, it's not that I feared, I just assumed I would never get published forever until I got the publisher. So, there's so many great books out there and so many people writing. And, I think it's, I always hoped, but I didn't really count on it. I figured I could always self-publish, I wanted the story to get out after I'd invested so much into it, but I have been surprised at how wide of an audience is connecting to the story. I thought it would be maybe a little bit more of a niche market, but I'm finding that Esther's story has, and it's the love story especially, has a lot of appeal.
That's fantastic. Would you ever like to be famous?
No. No, I would like Rebel Daughter to be famous. I would love the story to be, something that people enjoy reading, but I can't say I particularly am enjoying that, like to be a public person now. I like my privacy. I'm just learning about social media and Instagram and, consulting with my kids about it. And it doesn't come naturally to people like me. So I'd say definitely not to that one.
If you could have any non-supernatural talent or ability, what would it be?
Oh God, there are so many things I wish I could do. I wish I was a better cook. I wish I could be more disciplined about keeping in shape. So those are probably the two that are, kind of bugging me, right now, especially during the pandemic when you're seeing all these amazing meals that people are whipping up and there's sourdough bread. And, I would just love to be able to do that. And that's definitely not my skill set.
What are you working on now?
So I'm working on another historical novel, loosely based on my grandmother and her four sisters in Charleston, South Carolina, during the First World War. So that's I don't know. I hope it doesn't take me 10 years, but it's exciting to kind of lose myself in another time period.
Oh, awesome. So that's like late, 19 teens, mid 19
Yes,
teens.
definitely. Yeah.
Oh, I like that time period so much. That's going to be awesome. All righty, everyone, check out Rebel Daughter. I'll put buy links and Lori's website down below. Definitely follow Lori on social media. Thank you so much for being on the channel.
Thank you so much. Thank you. It's been a real honor.